Jeffrey Filak.
I'm Chris Gilmore.
I'm Noah Percy.
I'm Sean Spoon. This is Crash Course U.S. History.
Today we'll be learning about Civil War battles.
On to the first confrontation of the Civil War, the Battle of Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter is located in Charleston, South Carolina. The confrontation started on April 12, 1861, when the Confederate soldiers bombarded Fort Sumter. The Union ended up surrendering the fort over to the Confederates, and they waited 4 years until they occupied it. This was one of the skirmishes in the Civil War which produced the least amount of deaths, having there be only 4 to 5. Let's start off with some background information about the Civil War soldiers. The Union soldiers were called Yankees, and the Confederate soldiers were called Rebels. On to the first major land battle of the Civil War, Battle of Bull Run. The Battle of Bull Run was also known as Manassas. It started on July 16, 1861, when about 35,000 Union soldiers invaded a Confederate force of about 20,000 troops. Union soldiers marched from D.C. to go on the offensive, and the Confederate soldiers held them off until about 2 days of fighting, until the Union soldiers were forced to retreat to Washington, D.C. The Union realized that it would not be as easy as they thought it would be to win the war. Now over to Kyle and Hampton Roads.
It was the first submarine battle in the Civil War and in U.S. history. The Confederacy had a tough job trying to source the iron plating needed for the CSS Virginia. Prior run of CSS Virginia was in combat debut against the U.S. Navy at Hampton Roads on March 8, 1862. On March 8, 1862, the CSS Virginia dominated the U.S. naval SEALs. That was the worst loss for the U.S. Navy until the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Now to the Battle of Shiloh. On April 6, 1862, 40,000 Confederate soldiers poured out of nearby woods and struck a line of Union soldiers. In the 6 months prior to the Battle of Shiloh, Yankee troops had been working their way up the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. This allowed them to take desperately needed supplies. The Battle of Shiloh was won by the Union forces by recovering from a harsh first attack from the Confederates. Next will be Antietam, the bloodiest single-day battle in American history with around 23,000 casualties. Although it resulted in a stalemate, it prevented Robert E. Lee's planned invasion of Maryland and Pennsylvania. 2 Union soldiers found Lee's battle plan wrapped around 3 cigars. The Battle of Antietam was particularly critical because it probably prevented intervention by Britain and France on behalf of the Confederacy. North's victory at Antietam allowed President Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, but Noah will get more into this. Most importantly about Antietam, Lee's retreat gave President Lincoln the opportunity he had been waiting for to issue the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. So the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, it's time for the mystery document?
And by the virtue of power and for purpose foresaid, I do declare that all persons held as slaves within designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free. Wow, way to throw me a softball, Stan. Emancipation Proclamation by Abe Lincoln. Yes, I am on a roll.
The Emancipation Proclamation changed the focus of the war from preserving the Union to fighting for the Emancipation Proclamation. It was written by Abraham Lincoln, and he considered it to be the crowning of his presidency. He used it as a strategy in war in order to cripple the South, even though his ultimate goal was the abolition of slavery.
The Emancipation Proclamation helped to prevent foreign countries from aiding the South. Mr. Purser, why would the foreign countries want to aid the South? Tell me from the past. Foreign countries wanted to aid the South because they were the largest world producer of cotton.
Which leads me to my next topic, African American soldiers. There were nearly 180,000 African American soldiers fighting for the Union during the Civil War.
However, these soldiers only made $7 a week, and the white soldiers made $13 a week.
And these African American soldiers had more of a risk if they were captured by the Confederacy. On to the longest battle of the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg. Over 30,000 soldiers died in this battle, but somehow only 9 of 120 generals died. The Battle of Gettysburg lasted 3 days. The first battle was a much larger battle than is generally portrayed. The second day of battling in Gettysburg was the day of the most deaths. The third day was the day when the Confederacy won the battle. Now over to Sean.
Thank you, Noah. I will be discussing Sherman's March. Sherman's March is led by General Sherman starting on November 15, 1864 and ending on December 21, 1864. He led an army full of 60,000 on a 285-mile march from Atlanta to Savannah, Georgia. He led this march to scare off the civilian population into fighting with the Confederates. There were many destroyed buildings which took a lot of time and money to fix. On to the ending of the Appomattox Courthouse. In Virginia, at the Appomattox Courthouse, on April 19, 1865, General Robert E. Lee of the Confederates surrendered to his army about 28,000 troops. This ended the war. That sounds a lot better than what I'm going to be talking about next. Effects of the war. In the Civil War, 750,000 people died and most of the South was left in economic devastation. However, this ended slavery in the southern states and reunited America.